this thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now officially on the record.
Sweet.
All right.
Now we got to be nicer. Crap.
Folks, we got with us today one of my very, very good friends, one of the mentors from early in my speaking career, a guy that I really attribute a lot of the things I've been able to accomplish back to his guidance. And we'll talk a little bit about that here as we go. But please join me in welcoming Darren LaCroix. Darren, say hi.
Hi. How was that? Short, to the point. Boom.
I like it. That's the least verbose I think I've ever heard you answer a question.
I'm going to give myself I can't even give myself a high five. All right, I'll give you a high five. I'll give you props.
There we go. I'll transfer him over.
How's that? Nice.
There we go. So for those of you that are totally lost listening to the audio version of this podcast, we are live on blab.im. It's kind of a cool platform. I guess if FaceTime, video conferencing, and Twitter had a love child, this would be it.
Well said.
Right. I think we got it there. So, hey, if you're on board with us and you're watching us live, be sure to share this out. There's a little button that says click a little bird over in the upper left-hand corner. It will tell your friends and family and everybody else that follows you on Twitter that we are live on the air. And Darren, if it's okay with you, towards the end of the show, if anybody has some interest, we might let a few people into the hot seat to ask a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
Right on. All right. Well, hey, we're super excited here. Welcome to the show. This is Success Charger with Scott Cooksey, and I am Scott Cooksey.
Yes, you are.
It's funny, as I say that, I think back, one of my early audio products that I put together right after I had purchased a copy of one of your programs, what was it? Like make product
by next week. Or
yeah. There was a product, another one that came in. It was an older program that, yeah, anyway. So I put it together and I sent you like a copy of the draft. And I said, Darren, I want some feedback on this. And you were very gracious and you listened to it and you wrote me back. And the first thing you said was, thanks, I'm your host, Scott. You're the host of what? I think it was a precursor to my days today, where I'm now the host of my own podcast. So thank you. You inspired me.
You're welcome.
Darren, for those who don't know who you are, Darren is the 2001 world champion of public speaking. I can hear the Rocky theme playing in the background as we speak.
I can prove it.
There you go. He's got it right here, folks.
Ta-da.
If you're watching on the video feed. Oh, that's cool. There is the trophy.
Nice.
Trophy. When Darren and I first met, I think you were making good on a promise to the people of Toastmasters that we could talk about in a minute. That I think you shared right after you won the world champion and said you'd be one of their best advocates ever if you were given that opportunity. And you are pretty well known in that community even today.
Thank you. I try to stay good at my promises and my word because that's all we have when you get right down to it.
Absolutely. Well, tell us, Darren, who is Darren LaCroix? What are you all about? What's going on in your world these days, my friend? Tell us what's happening.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. And I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And so aren't a lot of people. Mom and dad are still confused. What do you do for a living? Why do they pay you? You talk, but you were such a quiet kid. Well, part of my story is back in the early 2000s, or actually I should say way back in the 1990s, I graduated from business school. I knew I was an entrepreneur. I love business, but I couldn't get a loan to start a business because all I had was college debt and no track record. So I decided to invest in get a loan for a Subway franchise to open those doors, since I had the success record of Subway, which at that time I think they had like 5,000 stores or something, but they were new to the area where I lived. And so I went full tilt, and my goal was to be a multi-store owner. I was going to own 50 or 100 of them and just, sit back and, have other people run the business. And didn't turn out that way. Didn't even get that one successful. In fact, and I don't blame Subway for this, but they opened another Subway right down the road from me. about a year and a half in, and it really took all the profits off the top. And I had to get rid of all of my employees and work for literally 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And it was literally the best thing that ever happened in my life. I remember, Scott, I'm sure you're a fan of Jim Rohn.
Sure.
And a lot of his wisdom. And I remember hearing him tell a story where he went to his mentor, and his mentor said, okay, write out a list of all the reasons you're not successful. So Jim sat there and wrote out a list of what wasn't right, what wasn't right, what wasn't right. And he gave it to his mentor. And his mentor looked at the list and said, there's one problem, Jim. Your name ain't on it. And that was, I could relate to that story because I was mad at the franchise. I chose the franchise. I chose the location. I built out the store. I did the promotion. I did the marketing. I did the customer service. And so I was blaming everybody else, but taking responsibility. So of everything I've ever learned in my life, it's you're responsible. 100% you're responsible. And guess what? Other people are going to make mistakes, and other people are going to have bad intentions and make your life challenging. But you're still responsible for fixing things, changing things, owning up to your own mistakes. And when I was at that point, the lowest point of my life, one of my buddies gave me a motivational tape of Brian Tracy. And he said, what would you dare to dream if you knew you wouldn't fail? And I thought, anything? I'll be a comedian. And I thought that would be the ultimate of making people laugh and earn a living at that. But then all of a sudden the little voice of doubt said, but that's not you, Darren. You're not funny. But that wasn't the question. The question was, what would you dare to dream if you knew you wouldn't fail? So Scott, let me ask you, if you had this dream that you wanted to be a comedian, or you just wanted to try it once, who would you go to for advice?
Oh my God. Well, I would go to you because if it was comedy, but you know what? Here's my dream. I want to be a game show host.
So if that's the case, Scott, who would you go to for advice?
Oh my gosh. I got to be honest. I don't know where to start.
But you go to a game show host.
Well, yeah. I would try to find a game show host.
You'd try to get any contacts you could, or go to somebody who is where you want to be. And
correct.
So when I thought about that, I made the mistake of going to my family. Which, if you have any dream, any hope, any desire, don't go to your family for inspiration. Unless they've literally accomplished what you want to accomplish. That's the only difference. That's the only exception. I mean, family can love us, and they tried to love me and encourage me, but they just couldn't get it. They didn't see the connection of me being a comedian, but they didn't know what was inside me and what was burning, and what I really wanted, was that love to make people laugh. Because growing up, my cousin and my brother were very funny. Anyway, to keep the story concise, I decided I was going to do it once. So I went and I asked a comedian after a show. I said, hi, my name is Darren. I want to try this. What do I need to do? And he asked me a question. He said, are you funny? I said, no. He said, good. I'm like, good? What do you mean good? And he got my attention. He said, but Darren, he said, being funny with your friends is one thing. Being funny in front of a group of strangers is a different skill set. That one can be learned. And then I had a little bit of hope. So he said, number one, go get the book. So I went and got the book. Judy Carter's stand-up comedy, The Book, is the one he recommended. And then number two, he said, go to open mic nights, watch other people who are just starting out. Mm-hmm. Well, duh, now I'm comparing me to someone else who's starting out rather than comparing me to somebody who's the best. So when I told my friends and family, hey, excuse me, this is blab and this is live. Sneezing happens. So when I told my friends and family, make sure did I get any on you, Scott?
No, I think I'm good.
Timing's everything.
Yeah.
Boom. Anyway,
we'll put the link to the video feed of this interview up live. So if anybody wants to watch this after the fact, you can get it.
So when I told my friends and family that I wanted to become a comedian, they compared me to Jerry Seinfeld, someone just thinking about it, to someone at the top of their profession. And it's not fair, but it's human nature. That's what people do. So even though they were well-meaning, they really almost took me off track. And thank God I didn't listen to them, and I listened to the guy who was where I wanted to be. And so I read the book. I got the book. You know, it's funny, like people come to me for advice and I say, okay, go get this book. And then they come back and they ask another question. I said, did you get the book? They're like, well, no. Well, stop. You don't deserve any more of my time if you haven't completed step one. Mm-hmm. So it's just anybody who whether it's an adversity you have or an aspiration you desire, find out who's done it. And it doesn't mean they're the best teacher of getting there, but they've got great advice. They've got good resources. They've got credibility. But the worst thing is trying to learn from somebody else who's a half a step ahead of you. You know, so I got two ideas. Let me get out, and then we'll go to whatever question you got. So, so number one, I got the book and I went and I decided, I watched an open mic night at Stitches in Boston that same week. And I watched people go up for their first time and they were horrible. And I thought I could do that. It was that bad, but it was inspiring that I didn't have to be awesome. I just had to do it. And so I studied for 2 months. I went to Stitches every Sunday night to get re-inspired and watch other people. And it was April 26, 1992. At Stitches when I went up on stage, and I brought like 18 of my friends to go watch me because I was never, ever going to do it again. And I filmed it because I wanted proof that I tried this.
Now, this is a pre-YouTube world.
Yes, this was pre-YouTube. And I never dreamed that that video clip would be part now of my inspirational, motivational speech. Anyway, I got one laugh, and it was a mistake. It was horrible. But even though it was a mistake, I got a laugh. And as I walked off stage, this man said, put his arm around my shoulder. He said, don't worry, man, it's just your first time. I remember thinking, don't worry, it's just my first time. Did you see what I did? I got a laugh. No one told me I could do this. And, you know, everybody there looked at it that I bombed. But here's one success principle is that I focused on that one tiny little bit of success to expand that, as opposed to just trying to focus, which we all do. Even myself, I have to remind myself of this principle that new emerging speakers will zone in on the one person sitting there with their arms crossed instead of the other people who are loving you. So we try to get them instead of feeding back and forth with the people who are giving us the love. So anyway, I decided after that I took every course that I could. I got every mentor I could. I got every book that I could. And I dove in. I said, I'm going to figure this out. I don't care how long it takes me. I'm going to figure this out. And then the second principle that I still apply today, because I still need to remember this, is early on in speaking or in stand-up, before I even came to speaking, I went to people who were the headliners in Boston. And I'm sure I picked up the idea listening to Brian Tracy tapes that people who are successful think differently. So if you want the results that they got, you got to create the habits they got. And to create those habits, you got to create the thoughts that they had. You got to know where to put your energy. Where does it matter? Where is it most productive? And where do you need to let go? So going right to the best, if I went to learn from people who were more accessible to me, let's say the opening acts or the middle acts, when I was just a wannabe, I would have learned bad habits. And that's even worse than not getting advice, is getting advice from somebody who's a half a step ahead of you. Mm-hmm. Don't ask the opening acts. Don't ask the middle acts, even though they might be more accessible. Go straight to people with the best. It will save you time, energy, and effort. So learn from headliners in whatever world that is. So, for example, right now, when I came into speaking, I went to Alan Weiss and Patricia Fripp and became a sponge to them. When I was in the speech contest, I went right to the champs. And there was a lot of other people giving me a lot of good, well-meaning advice that was bad advice, that was going to slow me down. And then when I came now into professional speaking, and now a lot of my business is like online and internet marketing, where I'm building a university to help people. And now I'm going to who builds the best communities to learn from them. So I joined other communities. Why? Because I want to see what they're doing, how they doing it, and then how do I apply that to my market. So it took me a long time to get there, Scott, but now what do you want to know?
Well, I just want to keep picking your brain, man. I learn something every time I talk to you. You know, the people that listen to this show, are often described the way you just said. Entrepreneurs are wired different, and a lot of people that listen to this show are people who genuinely are that. I describe them as the square peg people are trying to put in a round hole. Well-intentioned people are around us all the time, right? And they're trying to give us advice, and they want to tell us what we think we want to hear. But sometimes we just flat out need to hear the truth. That was a bad speech. That was a terrible story. You weren't funny. And that's hard to hear. But if you hear it from somebody who's actually successful in your field, to me, somehow it's easier to take, right?
Well, not only is a successful person, but also somebody who has your best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's going to tell you the truth, as opposed to, now there's times we all need the cheerleader, we need the pat on the back. And, for example, I know you and I can relate to Toastmasters, and I hope other people can, but, when you're working on your first 10 speeches, forget the critical feedback. Just encourage you to get to 10. Once you get to 10, now it's time to get a little more honest, a little more comfortable, because you've overcome those initial, I just got to do it. I got to go out on the bike and fall a few times before I can see what you're doing wrong in order to help you get better. It's sad, but sometimes I hear a lot of mentors in Toastmasters around the world who come to me and they say, when they see me give advice to someone, they'll say, man, I've been telling them that for 2 years. I said, guess what? And you're right, but they'll take it differently from me. Mm-hmm. So sometimes even good advice is not taken in because it's not from that credible source. So we got to be super careful. So Scott, you may have heard me talk about this before, and feel free to answer or not answer.
Okay.
Who do you think is more important, the student or the mentor? This is a tough one. Who do you think is more important, the student or the mentor?
Wow, that's a great question.
I'll
go on a limb and I'm going to say the student.
Okay, correct. Why do you think that is?
I would say the student because the student has to have the desire and the willingness to do the work that it takes. And they're the one, we're responsible for our own success. So if I seek out somebody that I perceive as a good mentor, for example, and they may give me some good advice for a while, but I don't continue to feel like I'm still growing, it may be time to go somewhere else. And that's my responsibility to find that. It's not the responsibility of the person who has been mentoring me.
Correct. The student chooses the mentor. So sometimes we're going to choose bad mentors. So we have to still keep checking in and seeing if we're making progress. Now we have to make sure sometimes that progress might be frustration because we're leading up to a breakthrough, as opposed to I am just going down the wrong path. See, I have this new concept you might not have heard me talk about, Scott, but I call it the math, M-A-T-H, to mastery.
Ooh, tell us more.
Math to mastery. And the equation is effort times direction equals mastery. And here's the cool part is that a little bit of, so let me set it up before I say the cool part. So there are a lot of people out there who are willing to put in a lot of effort. There are people who are willing to just put in a little effort, and that's okay. That's the choice, again, of the student. But the worst thing of all is when somebody's willing to put in a lot of effort in the wrong direction. So the key principle is a little bit of effort in the right direction will outperform a lot of effort in the wrong direction.
So that seems consistent with the adage, and it's been attributed to a lot of people over the years, but I think it still falls true that you become the average of the 5 or 6 people you spend the most time with.
Yep. Up your average.
Right? Yep. So, yeah, up your average. Well, so same to you, mister.
Up yours.
I love it. I love it. And it is true because, I look back at, when I first met you, I was in a different career space. I was just beginning to sort of explore what it was going to mean to be a speaker and what would it take. And I was at Toastmasters. I'd gone there to make sure that I had the basics and understood what was going on. And we could talk about Toastmasters more deeply because I was at a place in my life, nobody was giving me feedback, good, bad, or ugly about anything. And I just needed some validation. So that was helpful for me. But I remember telling my Toastmasters club, take the gloves off, give me some really hard feedback. Tell me things that don't worry about how I'm going to feel, because I want to be good. I don't just want to be good. I want to be great. And I know I'm not going to get there tomorrow, but I'm certainly not going to get there by people that say, well, that was really good. Gee, you're a little bit better than me, so I really can't tell you anything. And I found when you ask for that level of feedback and you build a relationship or a connection with those people, eventually they will take the gloves off. They will tell you the tough things. Gosh, I remember, in fact, Darren, you and I for a while were both members of the same Toastmasters club in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember, but anytime somebody would come to the meeting and it was your day to speak, we actually videotaped the presentations for some of those people, for everybody, I guess. And we would try to capture some of the questions and comments that people would get in the feedback stage, so you could take all of that with you. I was cleaning out some stuff here at my office the other day, and I found a few of those old DVDs. Haven't had the heart yet to put them in the computer. But I think if I watched them, I'd feel a whole lot better about where this journey has brought me.
There you go. Well, it's that everybody's got their stitches tape. You know, that
Exactly.
video that I've come a long way. And, I agree in exactly what you're saying. When I was working on my championship speech, and still to this day, I remember telling people, look, my mother has already heard the speech. Hurt me. And a lot of people, now it takes confidence to get to that level, but when I'm working on a new keynote that I haven't done before, I'll go to, I did one this summer, the opening of the Toastmasters convention, but I went to like 11 Toastmaster clubs a couple weeks prior, and I said, hurt me, and I videotaped it, and I videotaped the feedback, because there's two kinds of feedback. Number one, here's what I thought and felt as a listener. Number two, here's coaching. Here's what you could do to get better. Everyone's qualified to tell you thought and felt. Not everyone's qualified to tell you how to make it better. But if a lot of people are confused in one certain point or not really clear, well, okay, I know I need to clear that up. They might not tell me how to do it, but they can tell me that I need to do it. Or, what are they walking away with? What's the big aha for them? If the commonality, anyway, one of my openings for this keynote, I'm always trying to change it up. So the opening for the keynote, I asked the question, who is your hero's hero? And I always got that reaction. I hope you watched the video, because his reaction was what I got. But what it did is intrigue people and brought them in. So I could tell by the audience reaction that was good. Okay, we keep that, and then we work on the other part. So we got to know what's good. Scott?
Who is your hero's hero? I like that question,
because
it really gets you thinking, right?
It came out by accident, but when it did, I saw the reaction. I'm like, ooh, that's good. Let me write it down.
Yeah, for sure. And that's just it. You talk about effort in the right direction and going out and doing the work. And you boiled that down. One of the earliest lessons you taught me, it was real simple. We walked out to the parking lot and you pointed at your license tag on the back of your car. It said stage time. Can you tell the folks listening what that means?
Yeah, in every discipline, no matter what it is, if you're an entrepreneur or you just have a goal or aspiration, the people who've made it to where you want to be, they have that different perspective that we've been talking about. So when I do meet somebody who's where I want to be, I ask them, what's the most important habit to get me where you are, where I want to go? And when I started off in stand-up, I kept hearing from the headliners, stage time, stage time, stage time. And then it was one of my comedy mentors, his name was Vinny. We're in the back of a comedy club about a year and a half into my career, and I was still horrible, but I would get a couple of laughs here and there. It was okay. But, it took me a long time just to reach that point. But I saw this guy go up for his very first night, and he levels the audience, and they're loving it. And I'm just disgusted. I'm like, it's his first night. I've been doing this a year and a half. And I looked at Vinny. I said, Vinny, how do you know who's going to make it? And he said, actually, Darren, that's a simple one. He said, whoever keeps going.
Wow.
And that's profound, because whoever keeps going, he said, look, it's his first night. All of his buddies are here. He's in the moment. It works. Come back next week when his buddies aren't here and see how it goes. Just because he got lucky that first night doesn't mean he's going to be able to do that every time. And so he said, Darren, we're all on our own path. And he said, look, I see you working hard, because mentors can see effort and see people talk. A lot of people talk, but it's the effort that people really, especially people with wisdom, they can really see it. And he said, I see you working on this stage time thing. He said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of stage time wherever I play. Now, at the beginning of a career, you don't get the big showrooms. You're at an open mic night in the back of a Chinese restaurant with 6 people in the audience. It's not a good situation. So he just offered me great shows, 5 minutes, and I'd get to work with him. I thought, how cool. But then he changed my thinking, looked me dead in the eye, leaned in. He said very sternly, but if I ever offer you stage time and you refuse, I will never help you again. Wow. But what did he do for me? Now those times I didn't want to go up on stage, he made it more painful for me not to go up than to go up. And that little change changed my habits, changed my results. And he said, any day that you don't get on stage is a day that you don't grow. So if we want to grow, we got to get on stage more. But stage time is not just the speaking principle, the comedy principle. It's also a principle for everybody. What's that one habit? So if you're in sales, it's FaceTime, FaceTime, FaceTime. What's that thing you need to be doing that you create the habit that you might fail a lot, but it's going to get those 1 or 2 that you wouldn't have received, those successes. So it's figuring out what's that one habit. So that's why I pointed that out to you. I said stage time. That's the habit that brought me here. And if you took everything away, that's fine. But that habit is what's most important. So in the business of speaking, it's build your list, build your list, build your list. Your list is your influence. So every industry, every discipline has its most important habit. You need to figure out what that is to get there and then create the habit, not just think about the habit.
Let me take this conversation in a little different direction because I'm curious. A lot of the work that I do is doing a lot of corporate skills development facilitation. So I do a great number of workshops. I think I counted up the other day. I think I've done 110 this year.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. I remember when I did my first one, right? And it was like, certainly it's really cool. I'm excited about that business and it gets me fired up. But one of the things I've noticed, many of the clients I work with are in the oil and gas space and some other industries that have experienced a downturn. And I can remember, it used to be that anytime somebody said, "Hey, I just lost my job," they just went to Kinko's or somewhere or Vistaprint, had some cards printed up that said consultant. But there's always some people that go, well, "What am I going to do?" Well, I'm an expert in whatever it was their job used to be. I'll just go be a speaker. I'm curious, are you seeing an uptick of interest from people who might want to make that leap into the speaking business maybe by force rather than trying to really genuinely look at it and go, I'm motivated to do that. That's who I am. It's authentically me, and I'm willing to work hard to get there? Or what are you seeing today? Or have you noticed a difference?
I mean, I think there's a lot of people who want to be, but what you have to really be is an entrepreneur. Unless you get a best-selling book or you're on a reality show and you have celebrity status or you're an ex-sports figure, it's super challenging. And as you know, Scott, you're never done. There's never, okay, I've made it now. A year and a half ago, I had to reinvent my business and I have a completely different business model, even though I'm teaching the same things. Now it's my online university rather than CDs and DVDs in the back of the room. So my business model changed, and I think success is this day and age, because change is happening faster. Success is more your ability to improvise, more your ability to stay on top of what's right and what changes and who the leaders are and follow them. The leaders, the thought leaders in each area, so it can help you be a thought leader in your area. So I think there's a lot of people who would like to be speakers, but here's the key. Are you willing to do the hard work off stage so you can get on stage? Everybody would be a speaker, if you love speaking, obviously. Everybody would be a speaker if they just, said, okay, here you go. Here's a check. Go do your thing. That's just not reality. Now, you can do that working for one of the public seminar companies, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of great speakers, Ford Sakes, Mark Sanborn, Craig Valentine, Ed Tate, David Brooks, started that way. You, Scott Cooksey, you started that way. So it's great starting ground. If you're not sure where to start, it's awesome. But then there comes a point as you got to go out on your own. So it's a good starting ground, but the reality is people want to be that $7 or $10 or $15,000 speaker that, you know, just walks in the room and, let's hear you pontificate. No, you got to market your butt off. And it's a full-time job.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, but, you know, the biggest thing is really figure out who you are and what you want to do. Like figure out what's your message. Because you can come from the oil and gas industry and be a consultant and speak to that industry. And hey, you've got props, you've got the experience. But even if you're going to do that, step back and think, what do I really care about? What really matters to me? Because if you can zone in on that, you're more likely to create a better brand, to work on the days that it's not a good day because you know you're going to get to the audience that you can make the impact with. Sure. But there's different reasons to come into the industry. It's a different industry, but I don't want to focus on the speaking industry because I know the breadth of this goes a little wider than that. But I think there'll always be speakers, but the business is always changing.
Well, the audience is bigger than just that, but it's, you know, it's the field in which you and I both play. And, you know, in full disclosure, I still have a relationship with a company that I effectively am contracted through to do a lot of my deliveries. But it is a much more professional organization than I used to be part of. Mm-hmm. They're aware that I have my business and my practice that's continuing to grow. They know I have a podcast. I've even gone back and reached out to some folks. We're in the process of trying to get cleared to do a couple of podcasts with people from the company that I contract through.
That's cool.
To get them on my show. And it's like, wow. And it's because I've shown that I was a partner in their business.
Right.
And I helped their business grow. And I think that's kind of the lesson too, is if you want to be a speaker, but you're not ready to make that leap, figure out how to make speaking a part of your business, mm-hmm. right? I spent 13 years in financial services. If I went back today, knowing what I know now about presentations and connecting with people and how people make decisions, I would have done a whole lot more workshops, facilitations and things, even if I did them for free, knowing that my product, whether it's an online university, back of the room, what have you, would be when somebody said, you know what, you've shown me that you have the expertise and the knowledge, you've been willing to share, and I want to entrust you with my business. In fact, a couple of episodes ago, I don't know if you heard it, I think I gave you a quick shout out, but I know on the show I made the suggestion, I said, you shouldn't do business with somebody that isn't willing to give you something of value first. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I said, the retrospect is, if you want to be more successful in business, look at what you can do to give away your knowledge and your expertise, and it will attract more of the people to you.
All right. So here's my metaphor for that, Scott. My new concept. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this. I call it the Krispy Kreme concept.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Everything we need to know about the speaking business or any marketing anything is the fact that when you go to Krispy Kreme, you walk in, you smell the donuts. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's amazing. Then you see the donuts. You're like, oh, they're warm and they're going across the conveyor belt and they're being sprinkled lightly with sugar. And then the evil employee hands you a donut and you bite into that heaven and it's, oh. And as a result of that heaven, we, as a customer, buy more. And the problem in this industry and especially in internet marketing is that people are trying to give away horrible donuts. You're giving away stale donuts. You got to give good content. You know, like I love Jeffrey Gitomer. He says, don't write a book, write a good book. You know, don't put up a YouTube video, put up a good YouTube video. You know, if that's your like YouTube is what I use for marketing. I have 1,100 videos online, but they bring me business. But I really try to make them good, content rich, because I think about it. Here's my donut. If somebody has this donut for free, will they get excited enough to want to pay for more? So anyway, that's the little tangent, but that's the Krispy Kreme philosophy.
You know what's amazing is I know you, Darren, and you're from Boston, and you're a Dunkin' guy. And you're talking about Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, Dunkin' doesn't give away donuts. I go to Dunkin' for the coffee.
All right, I'll give you that one.
I'll go with Krispy Kreme for the donut. They get better donuts.
That's fantastic.
But I'm addicted to the coffee because of growing up there. So every morning I have my Dunkin' Donuts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know you do. Now, these days you are home based out in Las Vegas, Nevada, right?
That's correct. I've been here 8 years since I left you and my other buddies in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I can't believe it's been 8 years, but I love it here. It's no tornado warnings here.
Right.
One big difference from Tulsa.
Well, about 6 years ago, I left Tulsa for Houston, which is where I am now. And at least you get more of a warning if there's a tropical storm or a hurricane. Right?
Yes. I'll always remember, Scott, I don't know if you remember, but when I was there, I was at a drive-through, and it was a Wendy's, and I'm at a drive-through in my tiny little convertible car, and the first tornado warning came on, and I just freaked. I'm like, hurry up, give me my change. I gotta go get cover. I'm gonna die. And all I can think of is Twister, the movie. Anyway.
Oh my God.
Tangent for humor.
That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Gosh, you've given us so much already. Hey, you know what? Speaking of giving things away for free, you and I, in setting up for today, I'll get an echo now. You and I were setting up for today. You mentioned something, the top 10 speakingmistakes.com. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, after a decade of coaching speakers, you know, at all levels, from aspiring speakers to corporate speakers to professional speakers, I've seen it all. I've seen the mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so I created a PDF that's free. If you go to the top 10 speaking mistakes.com, I will send you that PDF, and I'll talk about each one of the mistakes and what you can do to correct it. But you just correct these mistakes, and it's not going to cure everything, and it's not going to make you amazing, but knowing the top 10 mistakes will definitely help you along your path.
It will. And I will tell you, if you go look, I don't know if you still have the site up for some of the product that I've provided an endorsement for with you before, but you know, I've purchased your programs in the past. We're friends, and I had no problem spending some money with you to make myself better. And if I couldn't have gone to your workshops, which I understand you have another boot camp coming up next week. Actually, by the time this airs, it may have just happened. But you have a storytelling boot camp. You have boot camps all the time out in Vegas. I
do. That's one of the reasons I moved here. I'm like checking it's a brand new site that I only put up last week. I'm like, what is my URL? The top 10 speakingmistakes.com. My bad.
Right, thank you.
The top 10 speaking mistakes. But yeah, next week, I'm trying to type it in, 10 speaking.
Okay. We're going to add that on the show notes as well. So if you're listening to the audio, I'll put it in the show notes, and you'll be able to just click on that link.
Yep. So next week here in Las Vegas, I'm doing one with Craig Valentine, The Secrets of Storytelling, for 2 days, and then one with Mike Rayburn called Virtuoso, which is about being the leader, standing out, being a virtuoso in your industry. And, you know, come join us. We do it at beautiful Lake Las Vegas. And the reason I moved to Vegas was to sleep in my own bed more often. That's the lifestyle that I created. I didn't want to be a road warrior. And as you know, Scott, from being a road warrior, that we do that at the beginning of the career, all of us do. When I flew from Tulsa, Oklahoma, I don't know how they get away with calling that Tulsa International Airport. There was not one international flight. No. And there was, every day that I flew, there was always one flight to Tulsa from wherever I connected through. So many a days I slept in another city because I didn't make my connection. So anyway, it was Jim Stovall. I don't know if you remember this or not. Jim Stovall is the reason I moved here. He gave me the great advice. But I love my little 2-day boot camps. I hated the cold, but I wanted to make it easy for people to come to me. So if you want to be a speaker, you live in a convention city. Duh. So I didn't like the humidity of Orlando or the traffic of LA. So by default, I ended up here in Vegas, and I love it. Nice and warm. Fantastic. It's room temperature out, right outside.
I saw the post this week. You were like, I walked outside and I thought I was still inside. You know,
it didn't change.
It was absolutely there. All right. Where else can people find you online, Darren?
I have, if they like inspiration, motivation, I have a website called 365inspirationalquotes.com, and I will send you a quote every single day for a year. My university, if you're super serious about being a speaker, stagetimeuniversity.com. Go to Stagetime University. And if you want to be a better speaker or the business side of speaking, getpaidtospeak.com.
You partnered up with another great speaker there, Ford Sakes, as well.
Yes.
Get paid to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I for most speakers, I say pick one subject, one, maybe two as a side thing. But I've been doing this for 20 years, and I realize I have 4 different areas: inspiration, hence the quotes, the business of speaking, the skill of speaking, and then humor is another thing that I focus on. But I figured three websites is enough.
That's enough to keep you busy there. All right, so you can follow him. Lots of places. We'll have all the links in the show notes. Darren, I've got one more quick segment that we want to do, something we call the lightning round. 3 somewhat serious questions. One not so serious. Less than 60 seconds. Think of it as table topics from a Toastmaster meeting.
Boom.
Right?
All right.
Here we go.
Timer on the board.
Timer's on the board. Here we go. And somebody's going to count your ums. Here we go.
Excellent.
What is success?
Happiness.
I think you read my second question. What is happiness?
Success. Sorry, couldn't resist.
Never ask serious questions to a comedian.
What is happiness? To me, it's everyone has their own definition, and if your definition is different from mine, good. But pursue and go for your definition. But for me, happiness is really peace, joy, and I am a huge fan of God. I grew up Catholic, and recently I've gone to a non-denominational Christian church. So to me, success is knowing that God's got my back and I'm really here to serve him. And that works for me. And what I really learned about I don't want to call it religion, but following Jesus, is the fact that I love everybody wherever they're at and whatever their faith is. That's what we're supposed to be and who we're supposed to be. And I know growing up, I was not exactly Christian. I thought I was, but I have a better definition I do now. I hope it's okay to answer it that way, but that's where I'm at.
Absolutely, because I normally don't jump in the lightning round, but I will echo that one of the places that I found that I could practice my craft, one was through volunteer organizations that I believed in. And the second has been the unbelievable transformation that I've started going through in the last 2 or 3 years in my own spiritual journey has led me to, in fact, next weekend, I'm emceeing a weekend retreat that is all about restoring relationships. And it is a Christian-based organization, but it's one that is non-denominational. It's not anything other than just come find out that God is here for you. And it's meant so much in my marriage and in my life and our family that to be able to pay that forward with my gift of being a speaker, to make that event just that much more special with somebody, it's all God talking through me. That's awesome. I hear what you're talking about, man.
I just had you familiar with TBN?
Yes.
I was actually at TBN Studios live last night.
Really?
In California. My pastor wrote this book called God for the Rest of Us. And they had a live broadcast, and it was really crazy because we have people who came to our church, former atheists. There's a pimp, go-go dancers. It's crazy. And TBN, oh my gosh, the poor traditional conservative people who were watching last night were blown away. Started off with a fire-breathing clown. They were I was just in the audience supporting my buddies and my friend and my pastor, but he's a super nice guy. But now I'm feeling like I'm called to actually help pastors deliver their message from what I learned from the secular world. So anyway, I know we went off on tangent, but hey, thanks for the props there.
Yeah, when you said fire breathing clown, I thought maybe you had actually gone to the Republican debate the other night, but that's a whole other issue.
No.
All right, third serious question.
Okay.
Getting back on track here. 30-year-old Darren is sitting before you. What advice do you give you?
Dude, be sure you want to do this because it's a long road.
Excellent.
If I had known how much work it would be, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, but I'm so glad I did. So I think I would also tell Darren, say, hey, you can do this. It's not going to be easy. Never, ever stop learning. Surround yourself with people who are the best and encouraging people. I had a branding expert a year and a half ago tell me, because in my blog, I started adding one little article. I call it my Darren's God blog, just about my journey, not about, I don't know. I'm just saying, here's what I'm learning as I go.
Here's who you are.
And I was told, don't add that to your newsletter. It's going to turn people off. And I'm just so glad I stuck to my guns. I'm like, if it's going to turn people off, then they don't want me. Do you remember Rosita Perez? Rosita Perez was a big NSA speaker. She might have been before your time.
Right before I got involved, yeah.
Yeah, she might have since passed away, but she was brilliant, and she was Mexican, and she played the guitar and had this beautiful voice, and I remember her brilliance. She said it was a big part of her keynote. She spoke. It wasn't all performance, but she spoke, and they said, Rosita, we love you. We want you to come. We want you to tell your stories, but we don't want you to use your guitar. It won't be right for this audience. And Rosita said so pleasantly, well, if you don't want my guitar, you don't want me. And it's okay to say no, but it's such a beautiful, powerful story. And so, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a better relationship because of some people. Now, again, I'm not putting it out there, but it's who I am. And if I'm not willing to say it, I remember Zig Ziglar said, we're told don't talk about religion, politics, or God. And he said, there's going to be a day you can't talk about him. So why wouldn't you? And hey, anyway.
That's cool. All right. Last question, a fun one. Darren is stranded somewhere on a desert island somewhere. And through the magic of a coconut powered by sand, I don't know, it plays music.
Nice.
But the trick is it's old school technology, and there's only enough capacity for it to store one album. What is that album that you can listen to in isolation for the rest of your days?
I have a playlist of worship music that's like hard rock Christian worship music that I never was even aware of 2 years ago. I walked into this church. I'm like, what? This is what? But if you're saying one album, it would probably be a Joel Osteen.
Fantastic.
Very inspirational, very positive. And I know sometimes he gets a bad rap because he doesn't talk about the sin side as much. But, if I'm stuck alone, I want some hope. I want that constant reminder.
I hear it. And being a comedian, you got to he starts every sermon with, I'd like to start with something funny. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. But he makes the point, so it's all good. But
he's so good every week. He's not the best I've ever seen, but to be consistently that good, I just like him. I resonate with him. But, hey, that's just my answer.
Well, listen, next time you're down here in Houston, we'll go down and we'll go sit through a service. It's unreal.
It's on my bucket list.
There's 20,000 people in an arena watching this on Sunday morning. It's really something amazing. You want to go down, come see us. I'll take you down there. We'll go for sure.
Sounds good.
All right, my friends. Well, that's what we've got for this episode of Success Charger. Thanks so much for joining us each week. Remember, every Tuesday morning, if you're subscribed, you will wake up and it'll be ready for your commute as you head out to go tackle the world. Darren, thanks again for being here this week.
Hey, Scott, congrats on your success. Keep it up and keep doing what you're doing. You're helping people, and I'm a friend and fan.
Thanks, Darren.
All right.